GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Neander. Here we are. Here you go. Week 13, man. All the chips are in. It all comes down to this. If you're not in the playoffs yet, if you're on the bubble, got to make those right moves this week, man. This is where it goes. Almost all fantasy football leagues end at week 13 before the playoffs start. And this is a big week for a lot of us. So no matter what position you're in. So, if you didn't make the playoffs, if you're out, use this opportunity to learn, see what you did wrong this year, what you did wrong in the draft, if you didn't keep up with the waiver wire as much as you should have. But you gotta make a learning experience out of a bad season. If you just got snake bitten and you just played teams that blew up every week, which happens, hey, tough luck, suck it up, enjoy the rest of the season, get ready for next year. If you're one of those teams that's already clinched the playoff berth, then hey, congratulations, get ready for the playoffs. Make sure you have your handcuffs. Make sure you have the defense you want. If you've already clinched, use Week 13 as a chance to solidify your lineup for the playoffs, blocking other teams from getting key guys. If you have people on your bench that you know are not going to make it in your starting lineup, and you've been holding on to them for depth and injuries and stuff like that, now's the time to cut them off your lineup. Go ahead and make some moves, get some other people on your bench, make your team as strong as it can be going into these last few weeks. If you're on the bubble, every one of these decisions is huge. If you're in a must-win situation, there's a lot of really tough matchups out there this weekend. And, it's tough, man. I've got a little of everything. I've got one league where I've been eliminated. I had an awful year. I made kind of a contrarian draft, and it didn't go that well for me. I've got, some leagues where I've already clinched, and I'm just worried about, my seeding and trying to make my team as strong as I can, like I just mentioned. And then I've got some teams on the bubble. I've got a couple of teams just inside the bubble that have a playoff spot but not clinched. And I have a couple of teams that are just outside the bubble where it's, one of them's a win and in. I got another one. Well, actually, no, it's not a win and in, but for the most part it is. I got another one where I need some help. I got to win and I need some help. So, hey, I've got some tough decisions to make, and it all starts on Thanksgiving. We got 3 games on Turkey Day, and there's quite a lot of action going on for fantasy football here. So we're going to start with the early game. So the Chicago Bears travel to Detroit. Classic Thanksgiving game, interdivisional game for the Lions. And so the big news here is that the Lions actually, backup quarterback Jeff Driscoll, who's been starting the last few weeks, has now been named inactive. And undrafted David Blah is going to be starting at quarterback. He's never been in a regular season game. And hey, welcome to the bigs. You get a nationally televised game on a holiday against the Bears defense. And let me tell you, doesn't look good. If you got the Bears defense, go ahead and play him, man, because there might be some turnovers in this game. Let's start with our Bears, though. Who are we playing out here now? With this news that David Blah will be starting, I think it bumps up a lot of my Bears, and the reasoning is I assume they're going to have the ball more. I mean, I can't imagine that the Lions are going to be able to sustain many drives, and so I just assume that the amount of plays that the Bears are going to run will increase with this new news. So I still don't know that I want to start Mitch Trubisky. In the streamable scale of things, I'd have him as maybe the third or fourth best option. He's just had so many awful games, and he's so hard to trust that I don't know if I would do it. I think that as long as Detroit's not scoring, I don't think Chicago's going to really throw the ball a ton. I think they're really going to play controlled ball, especially if they get up early. They're going to really control the ball and control the time of possession. And that's going to, hurt a little bit for Mitch Trubisky. But I do think David Montgomery, with this news, he was already, a probably start. I think at this point he becomes a person that you want to have in your lineup. I think they're going to go up and they're going to start running the ball and run the clock down in the second half. So look for that with David Montgomery. I do think that with Tariq Cohen, I think this actually lowers his value just a little bit because, again, if the Bears wind up being ahead, they're going to try to run the clock, and I think they'll do that using David Montgomery. So I think that Montgomery you want to have in your lineup. Tariq Cohen is a guy that's on the outside of the flex territory, and it all depends on your options. But I think that Tariq Cohen, his value pretty much stays the same here. Maybe takes a little dip while Montgomery's rises. Allen Robinson, I definitely think you need to have in your lineup. And for me, that's the only pass catcher that I want in my lineup. For the Chicago Bears. I know Anthony Miller's had some decent games, and so has Taylor Gabriel. But I'm not really looking for high risk, maneuvers here because, quite honestly, both those guys are still relatively low ceiling. So they're high risk, low floor, and pretty limited ceiling guys. So I don't think I want a chance on one of them. You could miss and you could pick Taylor Gabriel, and Miller has 10, 12 targets, and it could be the other way around. So I'm a little worried about that. I want to play Allen Robinson. That's about it. Detroit Lions. Let's make this real quick. I would not play any of my Lions. Now, I have Kenny Golladay in a few leagues. Loved Kenny G going into the season. He's had a pretty good season. When Stafford was in there, he was doing really well. It kind of dipped off with Driscoll, and now expected to dip even further with David Blah. So I don't want to play. I know they got to throw the ball somewhere, and he's going to go to whoever's out there. So that's Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, but I just don't trust that their offense will put up enough yards and enough, if any, points to make them fantasy viable. So unfortunately, if you have your Lions, keep them on the bench this week. So that's it. Let's move to 4:30. I love this game. If you've been listening and watching, you probably know. I'm a Bills guy. I'm just not one of those guys that's a diehard team fan. I'm a diehard my fantasy teams more than anything else. I've moved around a bunch, and I just don't have that real big connection. But I am from New York, and I've been a Bills fan since I was a kid. So I love this matchup. The Bills on the road at the Cowboys. We talked about it on part one of our recap show. It just always makes me think of Leon Lett and Don Beebe. I'll never get tired of seeing that clip. Here, I think the Bills are going to have a little harder time winning this game. And a lot of experts are picking them to win the game on the road as an underdog. I don't know if it's going to be that easy. So let's break it down a little bit here. Who do we want to play? I'm actually not only hoping, because I do have a lot of shares in this game, I'm kind of expecting this game to have a decently high score. I know that sounds a little contrary maybe with two good defenses, but I do think there's opportunities for points here. With the Bills, you want to play Josh Allen. He's been super consistent. The ceiling is somewhat limited, but the floor is pretty high with the rushing yards, so I think Josh Allen's pretty safe here. Devin Singletary, I want to have him in the lineup. Dallas is a good D, but this kid looks great. He's 5 yards a carry, if not more. They're giving him more and more touches. And if he can get involved in the passing game just a little bit more, he's going to have a big game. So I like Devin Singletary here. For me, I'm not touching Frank Gore. I think this is going to be a very, very close game. They're going to want their best playmakers on the field. So I think Singletary will see the ball a good amount this game. So I'm leaving Frank Gore alone. Looking at the pass catchers for the Bills, definitely playing John Brown. He's been too consistent all year to keep him on your bench. So I'm playing John Brown. Cole Beasley falls right on that flex, border. You can play Cole Beasley. The thing is, the ceiling again is limited, so he's a 4 to 8 catch guy, and he's going to be a 40 to 80 yard kind of a guy. The question is, will he get in the end zone? If he gets in the end zone, it becomes a pretty nice game. If he doesn't, you're going to have one of those 10 point games, which won't kill you. So if I can avoid it, I'm probably staying away from Cole Beasley this week. But he's a decent to solid flex option or wide receiver 3 that you can probably expect to get 10 points out of. So there you go. Other than that, with the Bills, I think those are the only guys you can play. You can play Allen, Singletary, Brown, and Beasley. Beasley's right on the edge for me. Going over Dallas. So here's another team where people are going to be asking themselves a lot of questions going into tomorrow. So Dak, had a tough game against a tough defense last week. New England, number 1 defense. But it was on the road. It was in bad weather. A lot was going against them. And they couldn't really get much going. So I do expect them at home in a game they really have to win. They're 6-5. They're up 1 game in their division. And the fact is, if they don't win that division, they're probably not going to get in as a wild card. So their path to the playoff goes through winning the NFC East, and they got to win this game. So I think Dak is good to go. Roll Dak out there. Zeke, you're playing Zeke. There's no question there. Receivers become a little bit more of a question mark. Amari Cooper got goosed last week by Stephon Gilmore, and now he's playing Tre'Davious White, one of the other only kind of, lockdown corners per se there are in the league, and you got to be worried about it a little bit. So, Amari Cooper, I totally understand you're probably going to have him in your lineup. If he's not on any of my lineups, but if he was, I'd probably have him in the game. But you got to be, cautious and have your expectations, a little bit, on the downside just because, hey, Tre'Davious White is fantastic. He's doing a great job at holding down number one receivers. And this could turn into a game where you see Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb get the ball more often, just like last week. So, when it comes down to it, I think that you can play all three of those receivers. I do think that Randall Cobb is a viable option in the flex. I think that Michael Gallup is a high-end wide receiver 3 to low-end wide receiver 2. Maybe, with high-end wide receiver 2 upside. And I do think Randall Cobb has just shown enough that he's right on the edge of that flex, wide receiver 3 category in the mid-30s in ranking. And I think you can definitely play Randall Cobb. And you might get a pretty decent game out of him. You might get a 15, point game out of Randall Cobb, and you'd be totally happy with that. So, there you go. I think the Cowboys take this game at home, unfortunately, and I think there's a decent amount of points scored, more than people think there will be. So, there's that. All right, let's keep it rolling to the night game, last of our Thanksgiving games. Hey, where this show is based out of Atlanta, the Atlanta Falcons are hosting the New Orleans Saints. The Falcons surprisingly turned it around a couple weeks ago and beat the Saints, kind of dominated them. So, and that was in New Orleans. And then went back to being, the Falcons from the rest of the year this last weekend. So we don't know really what to expect from the Falcons right now. I think that the Saints are going to come out and even on the road, Atlanta is kind of like a home away from home for the Saints. I think they're going to put up some points and win this game on the road. They're giving 7 points. I think they're going to cover that. And the over-under is 48.5. I think it's going to go over. So in that instance, I think obviously you play Drew Brees, you play Alvin Kamara, you play Michael Thomas, and you play Jared Cook. For sure, Jared Cook's becoming a big part of this offense. He's the number 3 option behind Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. As far as guys that are a little bit sticky in this matchup, Latavius Murray, I'd probably sit. I don't think I want to play Latavius Murray personally in this matchup. I think they're going to lean on Kamara quite a lot. He's fully healthy now and ready to rock. Traquan Smith, Ted Ginn, I'm not touching them. I'm leaving them on my bench. So for the Saints, you got Brees, you got Kamara, Michael Thomas, Jared Cook. Play all those guys with confidence tomorrow. On the Falcons side, so this is a little bit tougher. They are at home playing a tough Saints defense, an explosive offense. I think you can play Matt Ryan out here. He's got low-end QB1, possibilities or probabilities anyway. That's where I see him as QB 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. So I don't know that he's going to have a huge game, but I think he's definitely playable. The bigger question is at running back. Devontae Freeman's expected to be back in this game, and I don't know. I don't feel comfortable playing Devontae Freeman. They're still going to have Quadri Allison, getting a few carries. They're going to have Brian Hill getting a few carries, and Devontae just hasn't looked great this year at all. And this against a pretty tough defense. I think if I can pivot from Devontae Freeman, that is what I would do. So that's my advice. If you can pivot, that would be my suggestion. All right. Let's move to pass catchers. I wouldn't play any of the other running backs for the Falcons. I think it goes without saying that with Freeman back, those guys won't get enough work. The real question is Freeman. So, all right, pass catchers. Julio Jones is questionable for this game, and I think that with this season kind of a lost season at this point for Atlanta, it's very possible he either doesn't play or is very limited or comes out early if it's bothering him. So you really want to monitor, this game is tomorrow, so never mind monitoring. Just keep an eye on it throughout the day tomorrow and see how Julio Jones looks. If he's active and he says he feels good, you're going to play Julio Jones. You're going to play Calvin Ridley. The bigger question is, do you play Russell Gage? And yeah, for me, I have him pretty firmly in that wide receiver 3 ranking. So I think you can play him as a wide receiver 3 or a flex option, and I think he's a good option. Now, if for some reason Julio Jones is out, I really do think Russell Gage is a very, very strong play. I think he's a very strong wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside without a doubt. So if Julio Jones is out and you have Russell Gage, depending on your other options, you really might want to think about rolling dice and getting him out there because he's in line for probably some targets either way. But with Jones out, it might be a really surprising game for Russell Gage. So for me, if they're all active, I can play all three of their receivers. If Julio Jones for some reason is inactive, bump up Ridley, bump up Gage pretty bigly. Austin Hooper's still out, so no, I don't want to play Caden Graham. He had that big play last week, but I'm not chasing that one big play. So at this point, I'm not looking to play him. That's just kind of what it is. So there you go. I think the Saints are going to take this one on the road. Should be an exciting Thursday, Turkey Day of football. I mean, I do think that the Bears-Lions game, could be a little bit of a stinker, and that is what it is. I mean, if we're going to get the Lions every year on Thanksgiving, then that is a possibility every year. I mean, what are you going to do? So, there you go. All right, let's go to Sunday. We're going to start in Cincinnati. So let's get a couple of these ugly ones out of the way. The New York Jets are visiting the Cincinnati Bengals. The 4-7, the surging New York Jets are playing the Bengals 0-11. Can they get off the schneid? I don't know. They're reinserting Andy Dalton back under center to try to do so. The Ryan Finley experiment at the moment seems to be over. So they're going to move forward with Andy Dalton and see how that goes. I think that's a bump up for most of the offensive weapons for Cincinnati. So let's start with the Jets since they're on the road. Sam Darnold's really been strong the last few weeks. And I think that with this great matchup, I mean, we were talking about it weeks ago. Look at the playoff matchups this week 12, 13, 14, 15. The Jets have one of the better ones. I mean, they have a really nice string of games here for Sam Darnold. And he's starting to look good at just the right point. So he might be rostered, he might not. If he's not rostered, you got to think about, about streaming him. And if you have quarterbacks that are, Carson Wentz, right? He's one of those guys I'd be thinking about. Really, if you have, Tom Brady, right, in this game at Houston, maybe you're thinking about Sam Darnold, man. So I think Sam Darnold is very playable. He's at the very top of my streaming quarterback list. If he's out there and you're questionable with your quarterback, I think you could and maybe should play him. All right. Joe Mixon, fire him up. He's been playing better as of late, and I think he'll have a pretty decent game here, so go ahead and get him ready. And then Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's probably the only other guy I want to play on this game for the Bengals. I think it is an upgrade with Andy Dalton coming back in. I do think that Auden Tate and Alex Erickson could be sneaky plays, but I don't want to trust that. It's week 13. I'm not looking to be sneaky. I'm looking for points, man. I can't have somebody come out there and put up 2 points on my roster on week 13. So for me, I'm staying away from the rest of the pass catchers for the Bengals. I think you can absolutely play Joe Mixon, play Tyler Boyd, and that's it. How did I do that? How did I go from the Jets to the Bengals? All right. It's a little bit of a late night edition here on the GOAT, and I'm a little bit lubed, and I got a little sauce in me, so you'll have to excuse me. Let's back this train up. Sam Darnold, top streaming option. Sam Darnold's running back and the Jets running back is Lev Bell. I think Lev Bell is somebody who needs to play in this game. The amount of receiving work he's getting is undeniable. You just can't deny that he's getting that PPR work. He's getting that extra 10 points a game in the receiving game. So if he has one of those games where he finally busts out, which can happen against the Bengals, he could have a really big game. I think this could be his first 25, kind of plus point game of the season. For receivers for the Jets, Robbie Anderson, he's coming on at the same time as Sam Darnold is. Also coincides with when he came on last year. And I think that Robbie Anderson is a solid wide receiver 3 flex play. Jamison Crowder, pretty disappointing these last couple of weeks after getting all those targets. And for me, at this point, I think with Robbie Anderson and Lev Bell, number 1 and number 2, I just don't know that I want to play Jamison Crowder this week. He's a little bit outside of my rankings for flex and wide receiver 3. So I think Jamison Crowder is somebody you might want to keep on your bench. And Ryan Griffin, a tight end you want to play. The way tight ends go is if you're not one of those top 5, then that 6 through 18, there's not usually a huge gap. And 10 points, 12 points simply makes you a tight end 1. And the amount of touchdowns that Ryan Griffin's scoring puts him in that conversation basically every week. So go ahead and play Ryan Griffin. Unless you have a much better option, play Ryan Griffin. All right, let's go back over to those Bengals. So Andy Dalton, back under center at home. Do I want to play him? I don't want to play him. Could I stomach playing him in this matchup? First game back, winless, need that win? No. Actually, that's the answer, I guess. No, I don't want to play Andy Dalton. Joe Mixon, as I said, play Joe Mixon. Tyler Boyd, play Tyler Boyd. So I already went over this a couple minutes ago. Went a little bit out of order, but, so for the Bengals, you play Mixon, you play Boyd. For me, that's pretty much it. For the Jets, you play Darnold, play Lev Bell, play Robbie Anderson, play Ryan Griffin. They have a great match against the Bengals. They're playing well. Go ahead and roll with it while you can. Play your Jets right now. Enjoy the matchups. All right. Halfway through the episode here, we have, there's 16 games on the slot this weekend. So we got 8 games to get through here on this episode. Next is going to be the Tennessee Titans visiting the Indianapolis Colts. This should be a tight game. I mean, the Colts are giving 2.5 points, over under 43.5. Both teams are 6-5. Both teams need this win. I expect this game to be a medium scoring but very competitive game and very fun. Both the teams have been, a little more relevant for fantasy, I think, than we thought maybe in the beginning of the year, especially, with Mariota as a starting quarterback for Tennessee and then Andrew Luck retiring for Indianapolis. A lot of question marks going into the season here, but delightfully surprised and able to play a lot of these guys. Let's start with Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill just looks good, man. And sometimes it's about system and coach and time and opportunity. So many factors go into why you might not have been successful, somewhere else, and you get another opportunity, and then all of a sudden, it kind of clicks. And maybe it's just clicking right now. This offense is rolling with Ryan Tannehill. They just steamrolled over the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, and I expect them to have a decent game against a very game Indianapolis Colts team. Who am I picking? That's tough, man. I'm picking the Tennessee Titans, to tell you the truth. I'm picking the Titans. So that's where I'm going, but this is not a betting podcast. This is about fantasy football. So Ryan Tannehill, go ahead and play him. I know he's on the road. Indianapolis is tough, but I think he's just got a feel for this offense right now, and he's a very solid streaming option. If he's not, I expect him to be a low-end QB1 on the week, somewhere between, 9 and 12, and that makes him playable depending on who you have. So I think you want to go ahead and play him. You're playing Derrick Henry. Guy's killing it. Go ahead and keep him rolling. Who else do you play for Tennessee? So, it's kind of nuts. With Tannehill playing so well, there hasn't been that many receivers or pass catchers that have been doing very well in this offense. Now, A.J. Brown has been picking it up. I have him as a wide receiver 3 or flex kind of a guy this week. He does fall within my top 36, so I do recommend to play him. I think he's becoming Ryan Tannehill's most trusted asset, and I think he's the only pass catcher that I want to play. So I don't want to play Corey Davis. I don't want to play Adam Humphries. Even with Delaney Walker officially on IR, I don't want to play any of the tight ends, Jonnu Smith or anybody else. So for the Titans, I'm rolling out Tannehill. I'm rolling out Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown. Let's move over to Indianapolis. So who are you going to play here? This is kind of a tough one. Jacoby Brissett is a little further down on my streaming list than he was for a number of weeks. And I think if I can avoid Jacoby Brissett this week, I would. So I don't want to recommend to play him. I think he'll have an okay game. And it's possible he gets right near that QB1 threshold. But I have him outside of it. I have him around number 16. So, I'm not recommending to put him out there. Jonathan Williams, I do recommend to put him out there. I think they're going to run the ball quite a lot in this game. Try to keep Tennessee off the field and just try to keep this game into a grinded out kind of a game. So I think Jonathan Williams is in store for very possibly 20-plus carries. And I love that anytime I can get a running back in there with that many carries. Would like to see him get a little bit more involved in the passing game. We know that's Nyheim Hines' territory, but you got to make a little room for the guy, give him a little bit of opportunity. So, in this game, I think that you definitely play Jonathan Williams. And then for pass catchers, I only want to play Jack Doyle, honestly. So, as I said, they're going to run the ball a lot. T.Y. Hilton still coming back from that injury. Didn't look great last week at all. Zach Pascal has kind of disappeared since his one big week. So with Eric Ebron now on IR, he's having problems with both of his ankles. Jack Doyle becomes a big bump up, and they're also going to have Mo Alley Cox out there in double tight end sets. And even though he's a monstrous target, he's just not a great NFL level tight end. I don't believe so. So I think Jack Doyle gets a big bump. So for me, for the Colts, playing Jonathan Williams, I'm playing Jack Doyle. But really, that's it. So I'm trying to pivot from everybody else in that game. That's how I'm looking at it. All right. All right. Let's keep trucking on, man. Miami Dolphins going to be hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. And, hey, it is on the road in Miami, but everybody's been using the Dolphins as kind of a get-right game, right? Get your offense going, get your stars playing, and get them into the end zone. So, can Philadelphia, do that in this game? I really don't think they can. I think they'll win this game, yes. I do think they'll go to Miami. I think they'll get the win. Do I think they'll look great? No, I don't necessarily think that they're going to look great. Just my opinion. I think they'll win a closer game than it should be. Do you play Carson Wentz in this matchup? Yeah. I think you play Carson Wentz in this matchup. I'm okay with that. That's fine. If Jordan Howard's out, which we don't know yet, you want to keep an eye on this. I think Jordan Howard's going to play. But if Jordan Howard's out, I do think you want to play Miles Sanders in that low-end running back 2, kind of area. So I think he's very, very playable, if Jordan Howard winds up not playing again. He limited practice today on Wednesday, so he was at practice. So we'll see. Just got to wait and see. If Jordan Howard's in, I don't want to play him, and I don't want to play Miles Sanders. At that point, I'm keeping them both on my bench. Yes, there's points to be had against Miami, but if they're going to timeshare, I need people with more touches in Week 13, baby. Week 13, got to go for the jugular. So that's what it is. Pass catchers. All right. Alshon Jeffrey, limited participant in Wednesday's practice. Nelson Aguilar also limited Wednesday's practice now. They did drop Jordan Matthews after the game on Monday, and that would lead you to believe that at least one of these guys, if not both, will be on the field. Zach Ertz missed Wednesday's practice due to a hamstring injury, also very interesting. So all these things, this is what I'm saying. This leads me to think I just may not want to play a lot of my Eagles this week. I mean, Carson Wentz without all of his weapons, even at Miami, I don't know that I feel great about getting the game I need to get from him if no one's out there. If Aguilar, let's say if Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz aren't out there, and Jordan Howard, do I think their offense can do enough to really have a big game? I don't know that I do, even against the Dolphins. So, the fact of the matter is, right now, the way it looks to me, I probably only want to play Miles Sanders, and that's assuming that Jordan Howard's out. Jordan Howard's in, I don't want to play Miles Sanders. Now, at the tight end position, if Zach Ertz is in there, if he says he's good to go, you're going to play Zach Ertz. That's a no-brainer. I think you can play Dallas Goedert either way. Obviously, if Ertz misses the game, Dallas Goedert is a must start. I mean, a 100% must start. If Zach Ertz is out, Goddard's going to get a monstrous share of targets. So it's what it looks like, the way it's been going. So keep all that in mind, man. Tons of injuries for the Eagles. You want to exploit the matchup against the Dolphins, but with all these injuries, it's very hard to. So that's what you got going on there. Let's move over to the Dolphins here. Fitzpatrick, he's always low down on the streaming list. He had a great week last week. He was in the top 10 for quarterbacks, and you can always play him. He might get 3 or 4 touchdowns. That can always happen. But I don't want to play him with the possibility of the turnovers and not being able to move the ball. Can't play Caleb Balaj. Can't play, who is it? Paul Laird? Is it Paul Laird? I'm not even sure. It might be Peter. Paul and Peter. I don't know. But I don't think you want to play Laird either. Definitely play Devontae Parker. I mean, the consistency has just been off the charts with this guy. finally having a really good season. You want to call it a breakout, that's fine. 700 yards and 4 TDs. Very, very possible to go over 1,000 yards for the season with maybe a half a dozen touchdowns, and pretty solid game for him. I think you lock him in there as a mediocre ceiling but high floor kind of a flex play. So I think you want to play Devontae Parker. And that's it. So that's the end of the list for me. Not looking at, Jakeem Grant is now on IR. Albert Wilson is hurt. Allen Hurns is hurt. They're both questionable. So, for the Dolphins, the only guy I'm looking at playing is Devontae Parker in that game. So I just think that game's not going to be a great game for fantasy. I don't think there's going to be that many points to go around there. So, yeah. All right. Let's go back up to New Jersey, where the New York Giants are going to host the Green Bay Packers, and another matchup where you're looking for your team to kind of get right, especially after the beating, the absolute mauling the Packers took last week at the hands of the 49ers. So can they get right at the New York Giants? I think they will. So I think you want to play your Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, obviously. Aaron Jones, that's the question, right? So, the timeshare has gone back and forth a couple of times with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Both the carries as well as the targets out of the backfield have, kind of flip-flop between these guys a couple times on the season. But I think with Aaron Jones' breakout potential and the big playability, you have to have him in your lineup. I understand the concern because I have it also. I have him in a league where it's a must-win situation for me. But I think you have to have Aaron Jones out on the field. Jamal Williams is a can play. I don't think you have to have him out there. But he's a can play. I think he's a solid 7 to 10 or 11 point, kind of a guy this week. And if the pendulum swings his direction and it's a Jamal Williams kind of a week, then yeah, Jamal Williams would be a good play. But I think you got to have Aaron Jones in your lineup. Devontae Adams seems to be fully healthy. Got in the end zone finally last week. Didn't have a great game yardage-wise, but he's back to being the more than obvious number one out there, and he's the only pass catcher I want to play. I don't have interest in Geronimo Allison, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, or Jimmy Graham in this game. I think it's going to be a big Aaron Jones and a big Devontae Adams kind of a game. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm expecting. So there you go. I'm playing the big three on Green Bay, and you could play Jamal Williams. The Giants, even at home in a game where they could be throwing the ball a lot, I still have Daniel Jones as a very speculative stream this week. I don't love, Green Bay's defense started out hot, so they got a great reputation. They've definitely cooled off in the last few weeks, giving up a lot more yards and points than they were to start the year. But I still think that there's going to be limited room to work for Daniel Jones. I think he's a mid-tier streaming option, behind some other guys like, we're looking at these streamers already in this week, right? There's not that many great guys. I think he's definitely behind Sam Darnold. I think he's definitely behind Ryan Tannehill. Those are all guys I would play before him. So, yeah. So with the Giants, you're playing Barkley. You're absolutely frustrated and a little worried about what you're going to get from Saquon Barkley, but you know what I'm saying. You got to play him. I don't need to really go into all the reasons that you play a guy with that kind of potential. Pass catchers. So, Golden Tate looks a little bit banged up. Evan Ingram still a little bit banged up. Got to keep an eye on these guys. Golden Tate's in the concussion protocol, and at this point, he wasn't at practice on Wednesday. And, the concussion protocol makes me feel like you're going to miss at least one game always. And so I expect Golden Tate to not be available in this game at this point. Evan Ingram was working on the sidelines at Wednesday's practice, but wasn't a full practice participant. And if I had to guess at this point on Wednesday, I would say that Evan Ingram will be out. Rhett Ellison, the other tight end, also in the concussion protocol. Don't know if he's going to play or not, but if Ingram's out, I'm not interested in Ellison either. So at this point, Sterling Shepard, where are you at? Sterling Shepard, second week back, I expect to get a lot of targets, and I think he's a great sneaky play. He might be out there on waivers. I mean, he was out for a long time, hasn't done a ton in the one game he's been back. So, he might be out there. Go ahead and grab Sterling Shepard, and if Golden Tate is out, and if Evan Ingram's out, honestly, if it's just Golden Tate out, I still think you play him. If it's Tate and Ingram, I think Sterling Shepard could be a really, really great play this week and could help you win some games. Also think that Darius Slayton becomes a kind of a sneaky play as a big boomer bust kind of a guy. Not typically the kind of guy I want to play in week 13. I don't want a guy that could do nothing and have a huge bust. But if Tate and Ingram are out, we've seen that, Slayton will get deep balls and he'll get play. So think about playing him. Evan Ingram, that's tough. I don't think he's going to play. I think that, it all depends on how the week progresses, right? If he practices a little more on Thursday, maybe gets in a full or most practice on Friday, but they're saying good things, then maybe I play Ingram on Sunday. But at this point, I think you're going to have to go ahead and pivot away from Ingram. So that's unfortunate, but that's what it is, right? All right, here we go. Last game on the docket for part 1 of the preview show. Man, all right, this is going to be wild. So we talked a little bit about it a couple of days ago, right? This is the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Cleveland Browns. We all know what happened a couple of weeks ago, all the craziness, all the fines, suspensions, bad blood. We've got all that stuff going on in this game. Plus, we have 2 teams, divisional teams, within 1 game of each other. The 5-6 Browns, 6-5 Steelers are both, on the outside of the playoff picture, but can both work themselves back in. Browns are playing better as of late. The Steelers are starting Devlin Hodges in this game at home. It's going to be tough sledding for them. The Browns are a slight favorite, given 2 points in a low over-under game at 39.5. So what do we expect here? I think that Cleveland is going to continue playing well and playing well offensively and for fantasy. And I do think that in this game, that you can definitely play some of your Browns assets. Baker Mayfield, he's right on the line for me against a pretty tough Steelers defense. But I think at the end of the day, I'm leaning towards, yes, you play Baker Mayfield. They're just feeling it right now. Kareem Hunt is helping this offense. Just a little bit more time through the season to get together and gel together is working out. Landry's having some big games. The Chubb and Hunt, duo in the backfield is working for them. So I think you want to have Baker Mayfield in your lineup. I think Nick Chubb must start. We all know that. I think Kareem Hunt is a very strong start. I mean, they see the value of having him on the field. They're playing more 2 running back sets, which I love, and he's getting a lot of the receiving work. And we all know Kareem Hunt can make big plays with any one of those catches, but expect him to have 5-6 plus targets on the game. And if he catches 4 or 5 balls, that can easily be 40-50 yards and maybe a touchdown. You add some rushes in there. Very possible for Kareem Hunt to have a 13 to 15 point game. His ceiling is always going to be limited with Nick Chubb in the game. But I think that he is a solid flex play, if not a very desirable one. I think it's a very solid one. I think you can play him. I think Jarvis Landry is your number 1 wide receiver at this point for Cleveland. I don't think there's any denying that. He gets the targets. He gets the receptions. He just gets the wide receiver 1 looks on this team. So I think you play him for sure. OBJ, I definitely think you play OBJ. I think that he might just have that one big play. I don't expect him to have a ton of volume in this game. I'm looking for probably 5 to 6 receptions, which has been kind of the norm for him this year. But I'm looking for him to make a big play finally in a big game against a divisional opponent. So I think you want to have your OBJ out there. And that's where the line ends, with the Cleveland Browns. So I think you play all your assets. That's, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Jarvis Landry, and Odell Beckham Jr. I think you want them all out there in your lineup this week. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh here. A lot of injury concerns with Pittsburgh also. So, as I mentioned, they're going to be starting Devlin Hodges this week as their quarterback, which, hey, can't be any worse than what Mason Rudolph's been doing the last few weeks. It's been pretty bad. So, do I want to play Devlin Hodges at home? I don't think that I do. I just think that, it's a tough tough matchup to play him in. Not that the Browns secondary is that good or anything. I just think in a game that's kind of heated like this, I just don't know really what to expect. And James Conner's still hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster is still hurt. So, I just don't trust it. Maybe if Conner and Juju are back in, that could change my mind a little bit. But at this point, I'm out. James Conner didn't practice on Wednesday. I don't know that he's going to play this weekend. All he could do is mess up the other options here. So let's assume James Conner's out, because I think he will be out. I think Benny Snell Jr. is definitely a guy you want in your lineup. Got almost all the work last week, 20-plus carries. I expect him to be the number one running back for them this week. Jalen Samuels is out of my lineup. So what was, saving him was the receiving work. It was a ton of targets and catches out of the backfield. That dried up last week. And now Devlin Hodge is in. We don't know if he'll use Samuel in the same way. So I'm out on Jalen Samuels, but I'm in on Benny Snell Jr. I don't want to play any of the pass catchers for the Steelers this week. If Juju's back, I don't want to play him. He's just getting back from concussion protocol, so it's not that I'm worried about a re-injury. He does have that little knee injury that he's dealing with. He's still a little banged up too, but it's more that I just think the offense is going to struggle. That's why I don't want to play him. I don't want to play James Washington. I just don't have interest in these guys this week. So I'm staying away from most of the Steelers. Vance McDonald I didn't mention because guess what? I am playing him. Vance, buddy. Yeah. He killed me the last couple of seasons, man. But that's all right, man. Those are the calls that we make. You win some, you lose some. That's just how it goes. All right. That's going to do it for the first half of the all-important Week 13 preview. Man, I will have this up later tonight. It's late Wednesday night right now. The episode won't be uploaded until the middle of the morning. But when you wake up, this episode will be there. Thursday morning, you can check it out. Find out who to play in all three of those Thanksgiving games. Remember, if you have guys in your flex that you know you're going to play, go ahead and take them out of your flex, put them into the running back or receiver position. This way you have a little more flexibility with injuries and stuff for the rest of the weekend. So just remember to do that. Little pro tip for you. And that's it. Hey, we'll be back here. I don't think tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So we're going to get the second half of the preview show on Friday. Plenty of time for the weekend. And while you're digesting all those delicious leftovers on Friday, you can sit down and pop on the GOAT and check it out, man. Let's see who you're going to play. This is it. Week 13. Are you in? Are you out? What's going to happen? I don't know, man. Let's hope all you guys out there make the playoffs and we can continue this season just a little bit longer. All right. So, hey, have a great night, everybody. Thanks again. This is the GOAT Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Jim Neander. Find us on Twitter at GOATFF Podcast, at Jim Neander. Shoot us a line. We're glad to help you out. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.